Hello, let's talk about Spelunking Through Hell, the 11th of the urban fantasy encrypted novels by Seanan McGuire. This one published in 2022. This is actually more of a portal fantasy in a way, because we're away from the kind of urban fantasy cryptozoologist, rich kind of real world facsimile of the usual novels for some interdimensional travel. The encrypted series is all about the Price Healy family and them being cryptozoologists dedicated to preserve cryptids, though also maybe take care of problem cryptids who are just murdering people willy-nilly, in opposition to the Covenant of St. George, which is what they're splintered from, which is much more your traditional monster hunters, religious zealot types. Now that in a lot of ways doesn't come up in this book. What comes up in this book is something that's been teased throughout a lot of these novels, which is Alice Healy Price's quest to find her husband Thomas. 50 years ago, in like 1960, her husband got up out of bed, grabbed his wallet, walked into the kitchen, and was taken by the Crossroads, which was a evil entity. I say was because it's been vanquished in an earlier book, but at this point it was still in operation. Was taken by a Crossroads thing and just disappeared and never seen again. And since that time, that entire 50 years, Alice, who was like in her late 20s at the time, has been searching for her husband. Now, Grandma Alice, as we've been introduced to her, has been always kind of like an odd figure in this book, sort of an odd bird, someone who is quite violent, someone who looked younger than most of her granddaughters. She looks like she's 22, and it's like one of these things of she says like you don't want to know how that happened. And indeed, in this book, we find out how it happened. She has been given the information that it's quite likely that her husband is still alive. She's been doing it for 50 years, definitely feeling like, she's kind of going through the motions. But in the just in the earlier book, actually a little earlier novella, which I have issues with, and I'll talk about the novella in this one, which is actually a good novella again, which is annoying. She finds out that, her husband is likely alive and has been just tossed off into a dimension which they haven't been able to get to. And it kind of revivifies her that she wants to go and find her husband. As a part of this, she goes back to what's basically her home base dimension, which isn't Earth, where there's a fellow called Naga, who is a snake man, Lamia, who puts her through a fucking horribly agonizing, skin peeling off process. She has to be pacified by a Jorlik, which is a kind of telepathic wasp being. Looks like they all look like human beings, but she has to she has to get be basically held in the Jorlik thing, which is kind of weird in itself. We are going to go back to Naga, but revivifies her. She gets all this stuff. She goes off to do a job for him, finds stuff that says, oh shit, this area that I'd been told by Naga 40 years before, maybe isn't particularly there's nothing that actually sustains here. Oh, it actually is. And dun. You think about this book, the obvious happens. She finds her husband, and it's cool because that happens at about 40% of the way through this book, and it's like, oh, okay, well then what's the rest of the book? But what they're in is a bottle universe, and how the hell are they going to get out? So I think with these books, and this is probably highlighted even more so with this one, there's that Maguire has constructed this thing that there's the Healy luck is put throughout this book, that basically the Healys and their descendants have extraordinary luck, whether it's good luck or bad luck, they have it, which, you know, it's an kind of an I have to say, it's sort of an author. It's like an author going, okay, I'm going to have a lot of coincidences in my book. You know, how can I in universe justify this? Douglas Adams does this with the infinite improbability drive. So the everything, you know, in infinite possibilities. So this machine makes it so that the completely improbable is actually probable. And Maguire is doing the same thing here. So you kind of have to accept that there's going to be a whole ton of coincidences in these books that just gonna happen to be lucky. So you have to accept that. I mean, I think I'd already accepted this because it's an adventure book. Maguire, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know if she's as great with internal stuff as she sometimes tries to be, but she's very good at the action adventure, and Alice is very much a kind of a kick-ass thing. So there's that. The other thing in here is about Naga. Naga is a snake, this snake man. He's a professor at some kind of interdimensional kind of studies university on this planet. And he is completely untrustworthy right from the get-go. Right from the get-go, he is completely untrustworthy. You learn more stuff. He is completely untrustworthy. People say, Naga, why are you trusting him? You should stay away from Naga. And Alice is like, I don't care. I have to find my husband. And she just seems to be completely blind about this. And you get to the point you go think, oh, you've been put into the hands of a Jorlik that's in his employee. And a Jorlik can basically rearrange your brain. And it's like, yeah, you're completely mind-fucked. You are completely mind-fucked. And throughout the book, it's like, yep, you're completely mind-fucked. And we go through the book, and it's like, oh, she's what? Like, oh, but it's like, yes, you're completely, it's like, there's complete, it is so obvious. I wish that Maguire had kind of dialed it back, because I just clocked this and I just kept on, it started annoying me at how obvious it was. As of course he is betraying you. Of course you shouldn't trust him. Of course you shouldn't do this. And no, of course she does. Of course she does. Yes, you know, that this situation gets dealt with, but it's just like, it's a bit of an anticlimax after it. I mean, you know, it's satisfying, but it's a bit of an anticlimax. There is also the thing of like, okay, Thomas is in this bottle thing where it's like nobody's been able to get out, and Alice is like, okay, I'll just leave the information with my friends and I'm going to jump into it, trusting that they're going to be able to figure out a way to get them out, even though nobody else has been able to get out there except for one person. And it turns out that one person actually had like a whole elite squad with them, so that it's like how you would ever think that it is. But then we get the Healy luck. So the Healy luck means, you know, things are going to turn out okay, or at least interestingly. They're going to turn out interestingly. So you know, I like these books. This, you know, it's out of 5 stars. I you know, a highest thing I think I've given for most of them is like a 4 stars. Like, okay, it does its job. Alice and Thomas have an appropriately kind of spiky kind of relationship. You know, he's appropriately suspicious when this 22-year-old hottie shows up, when it's like, you should be 80 years old now. And, you know, you're obviously another. Crossroads is apparently likes to fuck with him. And it's like, you've sent me as assassin. That gets overread. We meet somebody else who's connected with these books, which is like, oh, okay, that's good. That makes sense. And, that Thomas and that person would be, not hooked up, but, you know, would be connected together. That makes sense too. You know, that I had no trouble with. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, with these encrypted books it's a 5-star, 3-star, big scanning series. I mean, hats off to Shauna Maguire that she's been able to kind of construct this this world. She's very insistent on summarizing everything, so someone could read this book and be completely spoiled for all, well, not maybe completely spoiled, but would be well informed about all of the stuff that happened in the earlier books. Not to the point she's just droning on and on. She's selective of what information she re-educates people on. Like, the whole thing of, like, if you hadn't read the little novella where she learned that, her husband could still potentially be alive and in one of these pocket universes, you wouldn't need to, because it gets summarized in here. She's very, very thing, which in some ways I appreciate, because there's so many of these gigantic fantasy series where they just write 10 books and they expect book number 10 expects you to remember some fucking scene in book number 1, and it's like, I would have the vaguest memory at that point of what the fuck you're talking about. So I think in the end I do enjoy that, even though you end up with 5 to 10% of the book being some of the books being summary. Not so much this one. This one is a lot more standalone as that things go. But yeah, you have to kind of deal with Alice is really fucked up. She is mind fucked. She's been mind fucked for probably the last 50 years. And that's too bad. That some ways that takes away from her badass and kick-assness about her. She is and she talks about being a very damaged person. And it's like, it's going to be one of these things of going forward is like what kind of relationship she and Thomas are going to have. I do like that ages get kind of closer together by the end. So you can tell this isn't a dirty old man thinking, haha, I get to be with a hot blonde hottie. This is it's good to have a female author doing this, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to push you a little bit closer together in age, so that it's not creepy old man's hot fantasy stuff. So yeah, that is Splunking Through Hell by Shannon Maguire. And I'll probably actually go launch right into a little chat about the novella after this. But, this is strictly for my own benefit, obviously, since who the fuck is going to watch a review of book number 11 in a a long series of novels. These are all like 342 pages long. They're not 1,000-page novels, which I really appreciate. They tell a short adventure and then we move on, and a short adventure and move on. And I appreciate that. I really do appreciate this series, even though I do badmouth it. I quibble because I love. All right, I will leave it there. I've been Jay. That has been Spelunking Through Hell by Shannon Maguire, number 11 in the nCryptd series.